Good afternoon. It's Thursday, the 20th of August. I'm Erin Viner, and this is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. Doctors at the Barzilai Hospital in Ashkelon say that as of this afternoon, there has been a slight improvement in the condition of Palestinian prisoner Mohammed Alan, and that he has regained consciousness and begun to communicate. The suspected terrorist has reportedly ended his 65-day hunger strike after the High Court of Justice temporarily suspended his administrative detention because of his deteriorating medical condition, which includes possible brain damage. IBA's Efrat Batat has the story.
The family of Palestinian prisoner Mohammed Alan celebrated last night outside the Barzilai hospital following the High Court's decision to freeze his administrative detention. Alan's brother announced that the 65-day hunger strike is over. The High Court ordered that Alan's status as an administrative detainee be put on hold due to his deteriorating medical condition. Judges ruled that Alan would remain in the hospital's intensive care unit and that his family members would be entitled to visit him without restriction, as if he were not a detainee.
This should have been done already 2 days ago when we were here in the first hearing in front of the Supreme Court and asked for his immediate release because, first of all, he didn't impose any security threat because of his medical situation, and second of all, in order to enable him to get the treatment and save his life and prevent the brain damage that now we are looking at.
Doctors at the hospital say that even though there has been a slight improvement in Alan's condition as of this morning, it's still unclear whether he suffered irreversible brain damage. According to last night's court ruling, if it turns out that Alan sustained permanent neurological damage, the administrative order would be revoked altogether, and the suspected Islamic Jihad activist would be released for good. If his condition, however, stabilizes and he requests to be moved to a different hospital or to otherwise leave custody at some point, he would need to seek the state's permission. The 31-year-old Palestinian detainee had gone 65 days without food. Earlier this week, on Tuesday, he awoke from his coma and vowed to continue his hunger strike, rejecting an offer of deportation from the state. Before losing consciousness again yesterday morning, he warned he would step up his fast by not drinking water if Israel did not resolve his case within 24 hours. The court's decision sparked a series of condemnations by lawmakers from across the political spectrum. Public Security Minister Gilad Erdan criticized the Israeli Medical Association for refusing to force-feed Alan, while others, including Culture and Sport Minister Miri Regev and Deputy Defense Minister Eli Ben-Dahan of the Jewish Home Party, said the ruling paves the way for future prisoners who wish to be released by setting a dangerous precedent. Even opposition head Isaac Herzog accused Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of negotiating with terrorists. For IBA, this is Efrat Batat.
Our reporter adds that the IDF today deployed an Iron Dome battery in the Ashdod area amid fears of renewed rocket fire into Israel from Gaza. The move was made as part of preparations for a potential escalation of tensions in connection to Alan's condition. During a session at the United Nations Security Council, the Undersecretary General for Political Affairs, Jeffrey Feltman, blamed Israel's settlement policies and what he called a chronic lack of adequate law enforcement in the West Bank, with responsibility for the recent spike in violence. He went on to slam several recent Israeli legal decisions, such as the imposition of up to 20 years in prison for rock throwers he said would disproportionately affect Palestinian children, as well as the ruling to expand the use of prolonged administrative detention.
Recent changes in Israeli law and policy affecting the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem, risk compounding the already precarious human rights situation. On 30 July, the Knesset amended the Prisons Act to allow a judge to order forced feeding of a hunger-striking prisoner to prevent imminent death if recommended by a doctor. While Israel insists that it has established a careful legal mechanism in order to strictly limit this means of enforcement to instances where a threat to life exists, numerous human rights and medical bodies have questioned whether forced feeding merits international standards of medical ethics, safety, and human rights. Careful consideration should be placed on addressing the underlying human rights concerns which lead prisoners to such extreme protests including prolonged administrative detention.
Mohamed Alan is also drawing support as far away as France, where a group of pro-Palestinian activists gathered in Paris to protest his situation. Demonstrators outside of the French Foreign Ministry praised Alan for launching a campaign that they say is about justice and human dignity, going on to accuse Israel of, since 1967, holding hundreds of thousands of Palestinian men, women, and children in administrative detention over the years. In other news, security forces are searching for the terrorist who threw an explosive device on Highway 60 south of the capital last night, moderately wounding an IDF soldier before fleeing the scene. The attack took place at the Patriarch's Way checkpoint on the Tunnel Road near the West Bank Arab town of Beit Jala. The soldier was taken to the Hadassah Medical Center with serious wounds, particularly to his face. Just hours before, a 22-month-old toddler and her father were lightly wounded when unknown assailants hurled rocks at two vehicles on Route 45 near Jerusalem. Both victims were treated at the Shaare Tzedek Hospital and released. Perpetrators in that attack also remain at large. According to a leaked document obtained by the Associated Press, a secret agreement exists between the International Atomic Energy Agency and Iran that permits Tehran to use its own inspectors at its Parchin military facilities where illicit nuclear activities are believed to have taken place. Further details have not been released. IAEA officials are only saying that whatever access that they're allowed to Parchin satisfies their requirements. The United States and the 5 other world powers were not party to the reported deal, although they are believed to have been briefed by the UN Atomic Watchdog Organization, ultimately endorsing it as part of the larger July 14th accord. Iran will reportedly provide agency experts with photos and videos of locations identified by the IAEA as linked to the alleged development of weapons. Cabinet Minister Yuval Steinitz has been heavily involved in the Iranian nuclear issue, and he released a sarcastic statement about the reports that the rogue nation is set to monitor itself, saying that one must welcome this global innovation and outside-the-box thinking. He went on to say that one can only wonder if the Iranian inspectors will also have to wait 24 days before being permitted to search the site for incriminating evidence. The Parchin revelations also riled U.S. Republican lawmakers who have been severely critical of the broader agreement aimed at limiting future nuclear programs in the Islamic Republic. Analysts say that the report is likely to further increase pressure from U.S. congressional opponents ahead of the Senate vote on the matter in early September. If the resolution against the deal passes, it would still take a 2/3 majority of legislators to override the expected veto by U.S. President Barack Obama. The White House appears to be unfazed by the AP report, and a spokesman at the State Department stressed Washington's confidence in the ability of the IAEA to monitor Iranian nuclear activities.
We're confident in the agency's technical plans for investigating the possible military dimensions of Iran's former program, issues that in some cases date back more than a decade. Just as importantly, the IAEA is comfortable with arrangements which are unique to the agency's investigation of Iran's historical activities. When it comes to monitoring Iran's behavior going forward, the IAEA has separately developed the most robust inspection regime ever peacefully negotiated to ensure Iran's current program remains exclusively peaceful.
Are you confident that the IAEA will exercise control over the chain of custody for samples, for all evidence throughout the duration from when it's collected to fully analyzed and reported on?
I'm not an expert on IAEA protocols, but I can tell you that Secretary Kerry remains fully confident that the IAEA will manage their part of these requirements just as ably and efficiently as they do anywhere else in the world.
The document suggests that photo and video evidence would not come from everywhere in Parchin that is asked, that it's limited in number to where this type of evidence can be collected. How can you assure that the entirety of the site and the entirety of your concerns will be addressed?
Well, as I said, I'm not going to comment on the details of a draft document that belongs to the IAEA. I just can't. As I also said, and as Secretary Kerry has said, we have full confidence in the IAEA and in the inspection regimen that they will establish and set up to make sure that Iran cannot achieve nuclear weapons capability. We're very comfortable with the arrangements.
U.S. Republican presidential candidate Mike Huckabee finished up his two-day visit to Israel with a press conference where he made clear what he would do about the Iranian nuclear deal if elected.
I would simply, from the very beginning of my presidency, make it very clear that this deal is an unacceptable deal for a peaceful future, not just for the United States or Israel, but for really all the world. This does not accomplish anything other than empowering a rogue nation, a nation that has shown consistently its intention to wipe other nations, including America, right off of the map. And it would be an extraordinary amount of money, especially if a government had no honorable intentions of spending it in a way that actually helped people who are poor or who are sick or who are hungry, but rather whose first major action was to purchase new weapon systems and delivery systems from the Russian government. This again is just a reminder that this is not a regime whose intentions are to become a partner to peace. This is a regime whose intentions have for 36 years to be a force of terror in the Middle East and throughout the world.
Jerusalem Mayor Nir Barkat made a controversial decision to ban mini-markets from operating in the heart of the city on the Sabbath, following this week's vigorous protests by ultra-Orthodox Jewish residents over the screening of films on Friday nights and Saturdays at the new Yes Planet Cinema complex in the capital. IBA's Ari O'Sullivan headed downtown to find out how that ruling is being received.
For over 20 years, this mini-market has been operating in downtown Jerusalem on Saturdays, the Sabbath. David, the owner, says he was suddenly informed that Mayor Nir Barkat had ordered that the laws prohibiting operating businesses on the Sabbath would be enforced. This and 7 other mini-markets were targeted. Last week, Yes Planet Cinema opened its doors and operates on the Sabbath, and this sparked ultra-Orthodox demonstrations. Well, keeping with the status quo, restaurants like this new one in the Independence Park operate on the Sabbath. Officials from the secular opposition in City Hall say Mayor Nir Barkat was caving in to ultra-Orthodox demands in order to save his coalition.
Well, it's not so much a price, and it's not as if he had some grand plan. Unfortunately, the mayor isn't very good at planning about anything. He did one thing, then he got into panic because the response was apparently stronger than he thought, so he's trying to make a deal. But the problem is that he's making these deals, on our backs. He didn't tell anyone that he was going to do this, and I don't think he should have to make a deal. The law says, the Supreme Court said, and this was a clear decision, that movie cinemas can be open on Saturday. So he's going a deal and closing down places that I would like to go to, closing down the businesses without talking to the businessmen, just because he, got into a panic and sat in some room with some ultra-Orthodox representatives. He's kind of selling us all off.
What's going to happen on this Shabbat?
I don't know. We're trying to organize something to protest in some way because I think, as I said, both the fact that they're closing them down is wrong, the timing is wrong, and the way it was done with, zero transparency, zero dialogue, either with the owners of the stores or with the people of Jerusalem who are used to going there and buying things on Saturdays.
For many market owners, it's a death blow because a large chunk of their earnings come on that day of the week.
Our income for only from Saturday, it's like 50%.
So this is going to be a real blow to your income?
Really, very much.
Do you think you're paying the price for politics?
Yes, I think the mayor did a deal on our back.
Many of the owners of the mini markets here in town are telling me they feel a sense of betrayal because they voted for Nir Barkat as the mayor of the city to bring a more secular and pragmatic face to town. Yet now they feel they're paying the price for his coalition problems with the ultra-Orthodox. Some say the city needs to have a special character.
In my opinion, because I'm religious, it's be okay. And especially because this Jerusalem, it's holy city. And for a holy city, you have another place you can open it. Here it's unique, and you need to keep it unique.
The mayor's office says there is no change in the status quo and that the court rulings have made it imperative to enforce the law. Sectors in the city where there is little religious presence will be allowed to remain open, such as East Jerusalem and Talpiot. This Saturday will be a test in whether the ultra-Orthodox were preparing for a long war or if they will be satisfied with this symbolic protest. Ari O'Sullivan for IBA News.
Tel Aviv's iconic Ma'ariv Bridge is scheduled to be demolished in a controlled explosion tomorrow at 6 o'clock in the morning to make room for the first line of the city's new light rail. Police have already begun closing streets around the structure ahead of the destruction, which will take place when Minister of Transportation Israel Katz detonates explosives affixed to the bridge. The overpass was dedicated in 1976 and named for the headquarters of the Ma'ariv newspaper, which occupied the site for decades until the paper was sold in 2012. Turning now to Cairo, where a massive car bomb claimed by the Islamic State ripped into a national security building located in a working-class residential neighborhood early this morning. At least 29 people were wounded, and the facades of many nearby buildings were blown off. The blast also demolished a wall in front of the government building, smashed its structure, and left gaping holes exposing internal offices. 11 of those hurt were police and soldiers, although no fatalities have been reported. Islamic State terrorists have beheaded an antiquities scholar in the ancient Syrian city of Palmyra. The head of 82-year-old Khalid Assad, still bearing his glasses, was found nearby his body, which was strapped to a Roman column in a 2,000-year-old city. The octogenarian was considered an expert on the ruins for more than 50 years, and it is believed that he was killed for refusing to disclose information to ISIS about the whereabouts of priceless Palmyra artifacts. He was detained about a month ago and wasn't seen again until his public execution. In other regional news, Kurdish rebels detonated a bomb on a road in southeast Turkey, killing at least 8 soldiers. Ankara state-run news agency reported that the blast occurred on a highway in the mainly Kurdish province of Siirt as the troops' military vehicle was passing by. The attack comes amid renewed violence between the rebels of the PKK Kurdistan Workers' Party and the Turkish security forces after the breakdown of a 2-year ceasefire last month. Dozens of people, mainly police and soldiers, have been killed in clashes since July. As we reported yesterday, the Rototom Sunsplash Festival in Madrid has re-invited American Jewish reggae star Matisyahu to appear at the event after having disinvited him earlier following pressure from the anti-Israel BDS movement. The head of Spain's Federation of Jewish Communities, Isaac Cherub, welcomed the decision while expressing hope that lessons have been learned for the future, as he stressed that there must be a united front in the fight against all forms of racism, anti-Semitism, and hatred, including discrimination against people with different opinions. Cherub said that the festival should be a celebration about music and not involve politics, and that he was relieved that the organizers realized that. The Spanish Federation told IBA News earlier today that Matisyahu has not yet confirmed his attendance at the event. The 36-year-old Pennsylvania-born musician is slated to perform tonight at the Bachkop Festival in Frankfurt. The latest attraction at the Ramakan Safari outside of Tel Aviv are baby sand cats, which are considered to be extinct here in Israel. The 3-week-old kittens are the furry offspring of their Israeli mother Rotem and her new immigrant partner Kalahari, who only arrived from Sweden a few months ago. Staff at the zoo were especially excited to see the little bundles because they are the next generation of the Felis margarita desert wildcat species, who mainly exist only in the deserts of Asia and Africa and have difficulty breeding in captivity.
New babies are really a big surprise for us. We didn't accept them. We didn't see any mating or any interaction between the parents. And as we got Kalari, which is a kind of new guy here, we didn't see any good relations between him and the Rotem, the mother. And they were kind of separated. She didn't let him go around. She was really keeping her territory, and he was mostly staying up on his shelf above her. And we didn't know there is a good interaction between them. And then after a couple months they've been here, even more than a couple, and we've seen Rotem's belly getting bigger and bigger. And we thought maybe something happened at night when we weren't here.
In financial news, 3 of the nation's biggest banks are reporting sharply higher earnings in the second quarter of 2015. Bank Hapoalim led the list with 886 million shekels, up from 782 million a year earlier. Bank Leumi more than doubled second quarter profits, earning 518 million shekels, up from just 229 million for the same time frame in 2014. The Israel Discount Bank also reported a rise of 68% with a quarterly profit of $270 million, marking an increase of 161 million shekels. Meanwhile, the First International Bank dropped 21% in comparison with reported earnings during the second quarter last year. Turning to stock talk, and the shekel today lost strength against all major foreign currencies, while share prices on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange were also down across the board. Here's a look at the afternoon numbers. We have a little good news from the IBA weather team that a slight drop in temperatures is expected tomorrow, along with fair to partly cloudy skies. Here's the forecast to home and abroad over the next 24 hours. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. We hope you'll join us again tomorrow, and I'll be back to bring you the latest breaking news from Israel. I'm Erin Viner, wishing you a great evening and shalom from Jerusalem.